Why are you getting in my way? Since I said I'm going to live here, I'll take everything unnecessary outside and quickly bring in my stuff. My mother-in-law announced loudly outside the store I manage. My husband Shawn, who was standing next to her, just laughed. At that moment, a black car pulled up. My name is Shelly, and I'm 31 years old. Shawn and I got married 4 years ago. His father passed away when Shawn was young, so his mother raised him alone. Shawn graduated from university and got a job at a local manufacturing company. He's kind-hearted and soft-spoken, but he's easily influenced by others, which makes it hard for him to advance in his career. I also graduated from university and initially worked at a cosmetics company, but I never gave up on my dream of becoming an esthetician. While working, I attended beauty school at night and trained at a top esthetician shop. I pursued this dream because I was always self-conscious about the shape of my face. I had received hurtful comments about it since I was young. However, in high school, while walking with friends, I got a free trial coupon for an aesthetic treatment and decided to try it that day. The shop was white and clean, with a comforting scent, and a very beautiful esthetician took care of me. I was immediately drawn to the charm of the place. She listened to my concerns and gave me a genuine treatment, even though it was free. I'll never forget the surprise I felt when I looked in the mirror afterward. She said, "It's our job to solve problems and bring out people's confidence." Her words moved me, and I felt tears well up. This experience made me want to help others, leading me to choose this profession. Shawn and I met through a friend's introduction, and after several dates we grew closer and got married after about 2 years of dating. Shawn is gentle but not very assertive, which balanced well with my strong personality, at least until his mother came into the picture. When we talked about getting married, his mother repeatedly asked us to live with her at her home in the suburbs, which was inconvenient for commuting. We managed to convince her otherwise and started our married life alone. Then a year ago, I quit my job and opened my own aesthetic salon, a dream I had for many years. Although I used to juggle part-time jobs, starting my own business made me much busier than before, leading to more frequent disagreements in the life Shawn and I shared. Still, we made efforts to maintain our bond as a couple by having breakfast together and letting each other know when we would be home. One evening, as I returned home late, Shawn, who would usually be asleep by then, was waiting for me with a serious expression. "Shelly, there's something my mother told me," he began. He revealed that his mother had accumulated debts, and it had reached the point where she had to sell the family home. I was shocked. His mother had always been reckless with money and lived without a plan. He further explained that his mother had used the money his father had saved for Shawn's tuition, forcing Shawn to rely on scholarships for university. This behavior was why I had refused to live with her when we were newly married. The sale of her house meant she would have nowhere to live, which made me feel uneasy. "Can we let my mother live with us?" Shawn asked, but I quickly cut him off. "It's impossible. We absolutely cannot live together. I don't mean to speak ill of your mother, but she would end up dipping into our living expenses. Isn't your mother still working? She should rent an apartment with her income and live alone." I strongly appealed to Shawn, desperately wanting to avoid living together. It hurt to criticize his mother, but it was necessary. "No, actually there are debts that can't be covered even by selling the family home, so I suggested cutting expenses to allocate more towards debt repayment," Shawn replied. "You can't just decide that," I responded. "I understand what you're saying, Shelly. I take back what I said earlier, and I'll talk to her about living on her own," he said, but I was skeptical. Shawn always seems to accept my opinion when he's with me, but he becomes speechless in front of his mother. I was deeply anxious that his mother might eventually force us into living together. Sure enough, the next day, I got a call from Shawn's mother. "Shelly, this is terrible. Do you really hate the idea of living with me that much? I held back when you two first got married, thinking you were newlyweds, but this time it's unavoidable. I'm about to lose my home. Even if we're not blood-related, what kind of cruel daughter-in-law are you to abandon a mother?" My mother-in-law harshly criticized me. "I'm sorry, but I have to oppose this. Our house is too small for even the two of us, so we can't provide another room." I calmly explained to her, but my calmness only made her angrier. "It's unacceptable for a wife to go against her husband's words. I will retrain you to be a proper wife, so be prepared," she said and abruptly hung up the phone. This was another reason I refused to live together. I've always struggled with her domineering personality. It's frustrating how Shawn gets swept up in her assertiveness and becomes submissive. The next day, even though it was early morning, my mother-in-law showed up at our house. "Shawn, Shelly, are you there? I've come to talk, so open up quickly," she called out loudly without using the intercom and banged on the door. Worried about disturbing the neighbors, I quickly let her inside, but she ignored me and went straight to wake Shawn, who was still asleep. "I have to move out of that house by next week. Don't worry about what this daughter-in-law says, quickly start preparing for my sake," she said, hitting Shawn on the back. I wondered how a man over 30 could be treated like this by his mother, but I couldn't just stand by and watch. "Mother, please calm down a bit," I intervened, to which she directed a sharp glare at me. "How can I calm down? This situation is your fault. It's because of your selfishness," she snapped. Tension filled the air between us. Shawn, seeing this, said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I'll figure something out, just wait a little longer," and suddenly began to apologize earnestly. Seeing him like this left me dumbfounded. However, my mother-in-law seemed somewhat satisfied with his response. "You have 1 more week. Make sure you sort it out by then," she said, and then left. "Shawn, why do you act so helplessly, and what exactly do you plan to do?" I asked as I pressed him. Shawn visibly became angry. "Be quiet, Shelly. Can't you show a bit more understanding? Why am I always the one being blamed?" he shouted and then covered his head with a blanket. Shawn raising his voice was unheard of, and I began to feel anxious that something unusual might happen this time. My premonition was right. The situation worsened the next week. As set by my mother-in-law, she and Shawn took an unexpected action. That day, I visited the bank in the morning for work and planned to head to the store in the afternoon. The store opens in the afternoon, so I had left the preparations to my staff. However, before opening, I received a call from my staff telling me there was a serious issue at the store and that I needed to come quickly. I changed my plans and hurried to the store. To my surprise, when I arrived, my mother-in-law and Shawn were confidently walking around inside. "What are you doing? Customers will be arriving soon, so please leave," I said. There were several beds in the store, separated by partitions, but my mother-in-law was lying on the beds and measuring them. "What are you talking about? This is a viewing, isn't it? There are beds here and this room is perfect for me. I don't need all of it, but I will use at least half. It's equipped for privacy, and it's discreet, so no worries. But this bed is a bit small. I'll use 2 of them," she said while arranging 2 beds together by herself. Incredibly, Shawn was smiling and agreeing with her plan. "Shawn, what is this? Moving here is not something I can allow. If this is a joke, stop it right now," I appealed, but I was confused by the unexpected actions of my mother-in-law and Shawn. If it becomes public that someone is actually living in the esthetician store, it could damage its reputation. My store has been highly rated for its emphasis on hygiene, and many customers have supported us because of this. However, I couldn't let their selfish actions ruin the store's reputation. "Please stop this and leave. We're about to open, and we have many reservations. If you stay here, I'll call the police," I shouted. Hearing the word police, my mother-in-law and Shawn looked a bit worried. "Let's leave it for today, but I'm definitely planning to live here," she said as she left with Shawn. I apologized to my staff and quickly tidied up the store. I expected my mother-in-law to be unreasonable, but I was shocked that Shawn went along with it. From the look on his face, it was clear he had decided to side with his mother. That night, Shawn didn't come home. I wondered if he was avoiding me or if he just didn't care anymore. Still, I needed to make sure something like this didn't happen again, so I called Shawn. "Hello, Shawn?" "Ah, hello." Shawn sounded reluctant to talk. "Please tell me your mother's actions today were a joke. If she starts living in the store, it will be ruined instantly. You know this store depends on customer trust. If your mother tries anything strange again, you must stop her. Do you understand?" Shawn didn't respond and hung up. Seeing his reaction, I realized something. Shawn couldn't resist his mother's constant pressure and had chosen to stand by her. It seemed easier for him to give in to his mother than to stand up for us. But this meant my store was in real danger. I was deeply troubled. How could I protect the store I love? I spent the night worrying, and before I knew it, it was morning. The next day was a day off for my salon, but I had a bad feeling, so I went to the store. While I was cleaning, a large truck suddenly stopped in front of the store. I rushed outside to see movers starting to unload furniture and prepare to bring it inside. When I asked the workers, they confirmed that my mother-in-law had requested this, and they were trying to bring her furniture into the store. "Please wait, I cannot accept this here," I firmly protested, but the workers didn't stop. They were just doing their job and had to complete the work they were hired to do. I managed to convince the workers to pause temporarily and quickly called for help. The workers were confused by the interruption and seemed to be contacting my mother-in-law. It looked like she and Shawn would be arriving soon. Eventually, my mother-in-law and Shawn showed up. "Why are you getting in my way? Since I said I'm going to live here, I'll take everything unnecessary outside and quickly bring in my stuff," my mother-in-law ordered. "That's right, Mom is going to live here starting today," Shawn added with a chuckle. Even though they were confused, the workers began following her orders to move things outside. "Stop doing as you please," I shouted. Just then, a black luxury car stopped behind the truck. A large man in a double-striped suit and a stylish hat stepped out of the car. His commanding presence was immediately noticeable. He was clearly no ordinary person. The man approached with a deep voice. "What's all this commotion? Isn't this disturbing the neighborhood? Shelly, are you having some trouble?" "Yes, I am. These people are trying to take over my shop and live here," I responded. Hearing this, the man looked towards my mother-in-law and Shawn and calmly asked, "It seems there is some sort of trouble here. Is there a reason for this?" Overwhelmed by the man's presence, my mother-in-law hesitated. "What are you talking about? Don't meddle in family matters. This woman is my daughter-in-law, so what's the problem with moving into her house?" At that moment, the man gently removed his hat and said, "I see that's what this is about. My daughter has always been well taken care of by you. I hear about it often. Shawn, it's been a long time," he said with a warm smile. "Father-in-law?" Shawn stepped back in surprise. This man was, in fact, my father. His appearance was far from ordinary, and Shawn had always been intimidated by my family. We didn't have a wedding ceremony, just a meeting between the families, and since then, my father and my mother-in-law hadn't met. At that meeting, my mother-in-law and Shawn were so intimidated by my father's presence that they left quickly without much conversation, and it seemed my mother-in-law didn't remember his face. "Father-in-law, it's been a while," my mother-in-law said, sweating profusely. "No, I haven't caused any trouble. I just brought some belongings because I thought I could live in Shelly's shop. I haven't caused trouble for anyone," she explained, trying to act innocent while urging the workers to continue. "You intend to live here?" "I can't permit that," my father said sternly. "I own this building. The first floor is rented out as Shelly's aesthetic salon, and my daughter and I have a formal contract as the landlords and business operators. It is not allowed to use this place as a residence. If violated, you will need to vacate immediately." "I've just witnessed a violation. According to the contract, you must vacate immediately," my father said with a piercing gaze. I could feel the overwhelming authority in his eyes. "I understand. I can't make any excuses for this violation. We will vacate immediately," I responded. My father nodded and turned his gaze to my mother-in-law and Shawn. "As you heard, I've agreed with the tenant to terminate the lease. If you enter here again, I'll have to call the police. You are now outsiders. Please leave this place." Saying that, he led me inside the shop, and we closed the shutter in front of them. My mother-in-law and Shawn stood there, dazed for a while, but soon I could hear them arguing with the movers. The movers, needing to rush to their next job, eventually left the belongings on the roadside and departed. "Shawn, handle this for now. Bring it to our apartment," my mother-in-law instructed. Shawn, following her orders, quickly arranged a rental car and began transporting the belongings. Watching through a gap in the shutter, I said, "It turned out just as expected. They're heading to our apartment." "I'm glad I acted promptly. Thank you, Dad." My father's stern demeanor softened, and he smiled. Maybe I went a bit too far. Despite his intimidating appearance, my father is actually a very kind person. He dresses this way because he loves gangster films, but he's usually just a friendly local real estate agent. They're sure to be surprised when they arrive at the apartment. We chuckled quietly to ourselves. In reality, all the furniture and household items from the apartment had already been removed, leaving only Shawn's personal belongings behind. After a while, my mother-in-law called, clearly distressed. What happened? The room is empty. Where is the furniture? Her voice was agitated and angry. I responded calmly, I have terminated the apartment lease. I was the leaseholder and I made the payments, so it was within my rights to cancel it. The apartment is owned by my father, and we plan to dispose of any remaining belongings as abandoned property and change the locks soon. If you don't collect the personal items quickly, you'll have to meet my father again. Her voice trembled upon hearing my father's name. So, where have you moved to? Let us come there. Won't you let us stay with you? I answered with a snort, I've just decided to divorce Shawn, and we will not live together anymore. I recently told Shawn that if you interfere with my shop, I would seek a divorce. He agreed, and I've kept his response as evidence. Due to the influence of you and Shawn, I can no longer continue my aesthetic business in this building. Therefore, based on the agreement with Shawn, I am proceeding with a divorce. As for the furniture, it belonged to me before our marriage, and it is only natural that I take it all. Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law began yelling at Shawn, who was next to her. How can you so easily agree to such a serious decision as divorce? The situation obviously required proper handling. I could hear Shawn exclaim in surprise. You shouldn't prolong this issue. Look for a new place to live instead, I told them before ending the call. Afterward, my mother-in-law and Shawn struggled to find a new home and eventually had to rent a house from distant relatives. Shawn's commute became difficult, and he quit his job to work part-time at a rural deli while scrambling to pay off his mother's debts. Meanwhile, I was able to move into a property owned by my father immediately. As for the termination of the aesthetic shop's lease, it was actually part of a plan, and in reality, the business continues to operate as before. Now the popularity of my aesthetic shop has grown significantly, and it's become so sought after that reservations are difficult to secure, even attracting celebrities. We warmly welcome male clients, and I regularly provide various beauty treatments for my father. Although he is nearing 70, the regular care at our shop has rejuvenated his skin, making him feel a bit closer to the actor he has always admired. Through these experiences, I've come to realize again that the essence of my job is to give each client confidence. The memory of my first free aesthetic treatment when I was in high school remains vivid, and the excitement and fresh feelings from that day continue to inspire my daily work. That experience taught me what I should offer through my interactions with many customers. I also think about Shawn occasionally. If he had more self-confidence, perhaps a different future could have been possible for him. Despite being so close to me, it was difficult to provide him with the right support. His situation has taught me how challenging it can be to offer objective help due to closeness. If, in the future, Shawn visits our aesthetic shop, I plan to interact with him impartially and spare no effort in supporting him to maximize his potential confidence. If I can give him the courage to take a new step forward, I believe it would be profoundly meaningful.